Zambia is experiencing a severe food crisis. The government says 1.7 million people are already food insecure, and the United Nations estimates that 2.3 million people will need food emergency aid by March in 2020. A longer dry spell and flooding in the country's northern and eastern provinces have been blamed for crop failure. Corruption in the government scheme meant to distribute inputs to farmers also made many of them to miss the first rains. Climate change has also been attributed to this serious drought affecting the country, as President Edward Lungu said in New York at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly. The food crisis is just the latest issue to cause discomfort for President Edward Lungu, already under criticism for Zambia's huge debt, corruption, and accusations of a shift to autocratic rule.
According to a recent report that explains this food crisis, the long period of prolonged drought between January and March 2019 that affected the southern and western parts of the capital Lusaka, as well as eastern and central provinces, is the root of it. In most districts, many households facing a second consecutive prolonged drought season had limited cereal stocks that ran out in the first 3 months after the harvest from April to June 2019. And this triggered a widespread food shortage that is expected to continue until the next harvest period in April 2020.
We now speak to Isaac Mwaipopo from the Center for Trade Policy and Development to understand why Zambia, with a long record of food security, is struggling to feed its people. Isaac, thank you very much for accepting to speak to us today. Over 1.7 million people are food insecure, and this figure is expected to rise to 2.3 million next year. How did we get here?
So there are several factors that have led to the current challenges that the country is facing with regards to food insecurity. One of the biggest contributing factor has to do with the poor rainfall that the country had received in the 2018 agricultural season. But besides that, it also has to do with the challenges that we faced in terms of ensuring that we also get to distribute in good time the inputs to support our small-scale farmers to grow enough food.
Now, President Edgar Lungu's government has received a lot of backlash since the start of this food crisis. Why is this?
Well, the president might receive a lot of pressure simply because the number of people that are actually involved is quite huge. We have about 52 districts that are affected by this challenge, and predominantly we have the southern part of our country where a number of people have got food shortages. There's been a lot of calls, including from the civil society, that it should actually be declared a national disaster so that a lot of resources can actually be galvanized to try and address the current situation. In terms of government's response, they have been quite slow in terms of resolving the challenge that has befallen. And a number of stakeholders have actually indicated that they should step up efforts in providing relief food to the affected areas.
Isaac, the food crisis is just the latest issue in Zambia. Before that, there was the debt problem, and the government has announced tough austerity measures. To what extent is governance to blame for Zambia's woes?
Well, to a greater extent, I think from the Center for Trade Policy and Development, in terms of the studies that we have done, it has continued to show that debt is actually still a big problem that this country is grappling with. It was further confirmed more recently when the president officially opened parliament, where he had indicated that from the total 2019 national budget, in terms of non-discretionary expenditure, about 50.1% was going towards paying of emoluments, 40% of our national budget for the year 2019 was going towards servicing of debt. That's a huge problem there, because it then means that we are left with about 9.9% of the discretionary expenditure that can go towards critical sectors such as education, the provision of health. And if you look at the population of this country, you cannot survive by using only 9.9% towards investing into critical social sectors.